Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I am joined by my two co-hosts, Michael Hall and Michael Reed. We are joined by very, very special guest, host for 106.7 and stand-up comedian Danny Rouhier. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Danny. How are you doing?
I'm great, guys. I appreciate y'all having me.
Absolutely. The title of this episode, Danny, is called Smoke and Mirrors, and the reason for that is because today it got released that the Carolina Panthers are possibly being able to move out of that 8th spot, and they've linked Washington football team to being that team that could possibly move up to that 8th spot. Do you believe that that's smoke and mirrors and that Washington is very capable of moving up to 8?
Well, this is that time of year, guys. You touched on it. This is, I don't want to call it silly season. That's cliche, but it really is. This benefits Carolina, right? There is interest in our pick. We're content to move. I mean, they made themselves a move to get a quarterback, so they feel kind of that's where their floor is. But if, let's say for the sake of argument, Justin Fields falls to them, that move for Darnold doesn't preclude them from taking Justin Fields. Everybody wants interest in their pick. Everyone's considering. Nothing but phone calls and text message are going back and forth at this point, right? I mean, whether it's GMs and scouts. And this is that time of year where when you read a report, you really kind of dig deep into it. You figure out, well, who benefits from this? A lot of times it feels like an agent for a player saying, there's lots of interest in blank at 12. What is there? Like a top 10? We don't know. Or, a lot of some players falling down the board. Well, that might be advantageous to a team that's picking in the teens or something. Maybe they do want them to fall down, whatever it is. So I'm sure Carolina's having conversations. And listen, if you have a Charlotte area code, you're in Ron Rivera's phone and you probably have a job here already. But there's I'm sure conversations have been had, but do I buy that that's an inevitable move? I do not. I think it's going to be really difficult. And I don't want to pour cold water, but I think it's going to be a big challenge for Washington to move up from 19 into the top 10, getting ahead of some other teams that might do it, right? Whether it's New England or Chicago or otherwise, just in terms of the ammunition, they've been kind of reticent to spend that draft capital to kind of go all in on something to be sort of the back end of the top 10, let alone number 4 to Atlanta, which is sure we'll get to. That's really where the draft intrigue starts to me. But I'm skeptical of that, Kyle, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, it's silly season, right? It's the draft.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually going to kind of piggyback off that. And if you go on Twitter, which everyone's always on Twitter, half of Twitter is let's trade up in the draft, maybe get a guy like Trey Lance, Justin Fields if they slip, someone of that nature. And the other half is build the team up, build it around, and then drop X quarterback in there and just kind of plug and play. Which kind of side are you on?
I'm different than a lot of fans, and I think that's okay. I think that's what makes this fun. I think that's what makes this, this little thing that we're all doing here, talking about sports. If we do at a bar, the barber shop, or at sideline of our son's soccer games or whatever, it makes it fun. I'm team go all in, because what happens if you don't? You lose. What happens if you do and it blows up? You lose. The only thing that I care about, I will sacrifice. I'm unique in this. I think a lot of Washington fans don't feel this way. And I think that's okay. I'll sacrifice 1 year, 2 years, whatever I need to be great. The whole point of this exercise is to be great. The whole point is a parade. The whole point is to have a legitimate shot to win a championship. For the build the team folks, I get it. That's a general smart philosophy where you'd say, well, let's build the team. Build it to where? Build it to what? To another 8-8 season? Or now I guess we can't be 8-8 anymore. 8-9, 9-8, whatever it is. You can be okay doing it that way. If you don't have a franchise quarterback, it takes lightning in a bottle a dozen times to have one of those teams that's got such a transcendent defense and a good enough running game to ground and pound. And even then, that's outdated. We haven't seen that in a handful of years. But to be one of those 9-7 teams that gets hot, makes it to a Super Bowl, maybe even wins one like the Giants or the Ravens did in 2012, that's a miracle, basically. It's right now the best 4 offenses play in the championship games. How do you get to that point? How do you get there? Right. Franchise quarterback. Just because you have one, by the way, doesn't mean you're guaranteed. Aaron Rodgers has 1 title. Right. So did Drew Brees, 2 of the best that have ever done it. But the window is always open for those guys. Yeah. The window here is not open until they've got a long-term, bona fide, excellent answer. So people are afraid of the risk. My point is it's just as much of a risk to go and do what we've done for the past 30 years, which is to not go all in. So I think, Mike, I'm weird on that. Whereas a lot more people understandably are cautious and want to build more carefully. I think that's nice. Your playoff caliber defense is here. You upgraded the offense slightly. You are now a quarterback away from being a real honest to goodness threat. So I go get him.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I feel like if you honestly think that, like, say Trey Lance falls, if you honestly think that this is your guy, this is your franchise quarterback, you got to go up and get him. You just have to. Like that's just the way the NFL works. So let's say that the Washington does stay at 19. I listened to you guys earlier. You guys are talking linebackers. The linebacker, we always listen to you. Come on. The linebacker is a very interesting.
Ones that people do, yes.
That's take a bow after that one. There you go. Linebacker is a very interesting position because there's a few guys that could really justifiably go at 19. If Micah Parsons falls, obviously JOK, Zaven Collins. Which one of those guys do you prefer? Do you have anybody in mind that you really like there at 19?
Again, it's such a dependent thing. I actually think 19 is a really interesting spot because just the way the math works, if let's say for the sake of argument, you've got 5 quarterbacks that go within the top 10, which I think is very likely. You add in a Jamar Chase, you add in Waddle, you add in Smith, and then you add in a couple offensive line. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah. You might end up with linebacker 2. Yeah. You might end up with offensive tackle 2. You might end up with a Rashawn Slater or Christian Darrisaw. You might end up with Zaven Collins is a wild card, by the way. I want to come back to that in a second. But there are enough players here where I think you're going to end up with a pretty good value, right? Where you may get the second or third best guy at a position, but it's not their premium position that everybody's kind of rushing to go get, if that makes any sense, right? I mean, there's one tight end that's first round worthy here. It's Kyle Pitts. But once you start adding up the weapons, add up a couple of the defensive players, edge rushers, maybe a couple of interior guys, obviously Parsons to me is the cream of the crop. Owosu Koromoa is intriguing. I wonder if that's a little bit redundant though with Landon Collins, and maybe what he's going to morph into is almost a nickel linebacker, kind of the idea of what Sua Cravens was supposed to be before all the quitting. But yeah, I mean, to me, Zaven Collins is fascinating, right? I mean, that now he hasn't had the impact that I thought he would have, but it reminds me a lot of Tremaine Edmonds up in Buffalo now. He's tall, but can fly around the football field. You want him to rush, you want him to cover, you want him to hit. He can sort of do all that. I don't know schematically how well that fits in terms of what they need. And maybe you don't care because you got a guy that can do all those things that he can do. You just kind of plug him in. But to me, if it ends up that you get Micah Parsons, you write it in Sharpie and you hire Usain Bolt to sprint to the podium and that some bitch and you feel good about that because that value is incredible. I love that answers your question.
I will also say that whoever Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio pick at linebacker, I'm trusting their judgment on a linebacker.
There, I buy that.
Just a little bit of experience. Now, the Washington football team waived Bryce Love today. It was kind of big, or yesterday. It was big news. Now, Peter Schrager of NFL Network did a mock and had the Washington football team selecting a running back at 19 in the first round, Danny. How silly is that? Because like you said, it's silly season. But let's just say you don't agree with Peter. What round would you be comfortable with drafting a running back in?
To me, the 3rd through 5th rounds are made for running backs. I don't know how many times we have to see guys go to situations and end up productive that are not the 1st and 2nd round guys. Doesn't mean that 1st round running backs, guys like Dalvin Cook or
Zeke Elliott
haven't been
Saquon
good.
Barkley, right?
Yeah. But there's no way you can tell me that spending a 1st round pick on a guy that where the attrition rate is off the charts in a league of attrition, that positional attrition is 3 or 4 fold that. I mean, rarely guys live up to that second contract. I mean, as good as like McCaffrey is, he missed the entire season. Well, as good as Saquon Barkley is, he missed a ton of time. Dallas might be better with Tony Pollard in the backfield right now because he's more explosive. Nobody's allowed to admit that because that's Jared Jones's boy, and I've spent a lot of money. But that's the deal, right? So for me, if they did that at 19, I think that would be a colossal mistake. I really do. Plus, it ain't as if Gibson's a slouch. That guy was a receiver an hour ago, and he's about 1,000-yard back that I think there's more in the tank for him in terms of how dynamic he can be in Scott Turner's system. The thing that I was frustrated by, just getting on a little bit of a tangent here, was he's drafted, college receiver, but with the idea he's going to be a running back, right? And we had Adrian Peterson on the show the day he was cut, actually, which was kind of amazing. He was like, yeah, sure, I'll call you fat idiots, which was really neat. And he was like, you guys don't understand. Gibson's a running back. He's not some weapon. He's not some utility guy. He's not some hybrid thing. He's not like Curtis Samuel's going to be. This is a running back who's thick and he can get downhill. And that's neat. I'm in favor of that. But that's not exciting to me. What's exciting to me is Gibson's in the game. A defensive coordinator's going, all right, let's go base package. You go, okay, they're in base. Gibson, you run out there, and now you got a linebacker on your ass. or would go nickel. Okay, let's check to, we'll do one helmet tap, and now you're going downhill on somebody that's 185 pounds who doesn't want to see you with a head of steam. That to me is what's exciting, not pounding in between the tackles, which he can do, but that means you're shortening his career, kind of lessening the impact there. So maybe it's a blocking issue for him to stay on the field more. I thought I'd get more from him as a receiver. But to me, just back to your point though, Kyle, at 19, drafting a running back, good gracious. Drafting a running back, I think would be a massive mistake. And it would ignore, A, where the value is in this draft, B, where their needs are. I mean, listen, people do this best available thing. That's just a catchphrase, okay? If the best available player was a left tackle 7 times, nobody would take 7 tackles. Well, it's the best available. That's something to hide behind. You've got to marry positional need with relative value and the players that are on your board. It doesn't mean you reach 3 or 4 rounds for somebody just because they're the next tackle. That's dumb. But you find something that where there's a marriage, and there is at 19. They're going to get a player at 19 if they stay there.
Yeah, Bill Belichick, I think, has said that before when he's talked about people with best player available, and he said, look, I'm trying to build the best team overall. Yeah, to your point.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and we're going to look ahead way, way, way into the future, into September and beyond. The team brought in free agents this year, like Fitzpatrick at the quarterback. Obviously, they added Curtis Samuel to pair up with Terry McLaurin, William Jackson on the defensive side.
Yeah.
As his roster is currently constructed, how do you kind of see them stacked up in the NFC East and the NFC as a whole?
The NFC East, Mike, is I don't know how to predict this thing. Now, on paper at this stage, okay? Now, keep in mind, on paper last year, Dallas and Philadelphia are fighting for the division title.
Yeah. Right.
How did that go? Last year ended up being maybe one of the worst divisions in sports history, not just football history, but in the history of sport. I think Philadelphia is going to take a step back. I think they're willing to get punched in the nose this year to get younger. They're old, not at quarterback, but almost everywhere else they're old. It's like a whole team of Alshon Jeffrey. It's like a lot of that, right? They got some old deals. Everybody's very expensive coming off that Super Bowl. The cascade effect gets down. I think they're willing to deal with it this year, take their lumps, be bad, purge the roster, and kind of start anew potentially with a franchise guy. Dallas, if they're just okay defensively, is terrifying. Now, I hate them, obviously, and I think all their fans are stupid.
That's a good point.
But, like, if that defense can get a stop a week,
I know
they'll beat you 40-39. I mean, that's a really good group. And I think the Giants, who beat Washington twice this past year, very similar boat to Washington. And they've already made a point of trying to upgrade their offense, which was anemic at times, to support Daniel Jones. So I don't think that much of, but you surround him with enough that defense can play a little bit. So they're a threat. I think somebody winning this division is going to be that 9-7 style team that we've seen. Maybe they get to 10 wins in this new system. Maybe it's a 9-8 type deal. But I think Washington's got a shot at that. I think they knew that. And I think that's what would influence their offseason. We touched on kind of how this defense was good enough. Couple glaring games where that wasn't the case. That Detroit game still sticks in my craw where they couldn't get a stop and Matt Stafford torched them. And obviously the game against Tampa where, where was that pass rush? Where was this group that was so vaunted? That was a non-factor in that one. It was really the offense that outshone them. But for the most part, that's a playoff caliber defense. An adequate offense, where this offense last year, there's basically your top 10 teams with one exception were all postseason teams, right? In terms of offense, that's yards per play, that's offensive efficiency, that's scoring. Washington was down at the bottom of almost every category. They need to come up with another 100 points this season to break into where that category is, right? North of 400 points is kind of the new standard for the league. They were 100 points shy of that. That can't happen. They know that. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick to make sure that the bottom didn't fall out, right? I think Allen might be able to do it at times, and Heineke certainly showed very, very well. But I think on over 16 games, a big enough sample wouldn't be kind to them. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick to make sure that they didn't go into the crapper, right? And have Dan Snyder in the corner office rear his ugly head and get pissed off and decide to take all the authority back. And the white knight that rode in here and got all the authority all of a sudden doesn't have it anymore, which is a playbook that we've seen a couple different times, whether it's Scott McCollum or Mike Shanahan or otherwise, right? So I think they stack up pretty well, Mike. That group, to me, is good enough to win the NFC East again. Will they? I don't know. I honestly, I probably wouldn't bet on it. I'd probably take the field versus them. As it compares to the rest of the NFC, though, it's hard for me to see them jumping up and making the leap to somebody elite, like whether it was Tampa this past year. I don't know what New Orleans is going to be, minus Drew Brees, but with Green Bay and company, I don't think they're there yet. Now we haven't had the draft and training camps and stuff hasn't happened, so who knows if somebody slips on a banana peel and changes everything. But right now on paper, they are in contention in the NFC East and probably, top of my head, I'd say 6th or 7th in the NFC overall.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And as of right now, shit, I'm sorry. I bet my headphones just went out. That was weird. Yeah, as of right now, the schedule coming up is so difficult for Washington. Like I know a lot, like you said, a lot has to change, a lot will change, but it's going to be very difficult. I mean, they do play some good teams, especially throwing Buffalo in there. That's going to be tough. But we'll get back to the draft real fast, and we'll just bust out your crystal ball. What do you think happens at pick 4? What's your bold prediction for pick 4?
I think Atlanta trades out. I really do. I don't have good evidence of that. I don't have great reasoning. I think, they may end up at 4. It could be Pitts. It could be Sewell. It could be any number of things. I don't think they go quarterback. I think they're stuck with Matt Ryan's deal for maybe one more year. Right. With that, I mean, it would be prohibitive to end up having a second guy. But maybe they just do it because you figure I'm not going to be back here anytime soon. And a guy as good as Justin Fields, for the sake of argument, won't be around the next time I draft. I better just take the chance and do it because I got that 5th-year option. But to me, I think Atlanta trades out of that spot. I think the price is going to be too rich. I think someone's going to fall in love with either Fields or Lance and be desperate to move up, whether it's Denver, whether it's Chicago, New England. Washington, wild card, I think they're not the odds-on favorite to do that, but I got this gut feeling like that Atlanta makes a trade at 4. To me, that's where the intrigue starts. Well, let me rephrase. I think the intrigue starts at 3 with San Francisco as to which quarterback they've actually fallen in love with, because they know, Kyle knows, and they moved up to do it.
I do, yeah.
We just don't know who that is exactly. I mean, right now the scuttlebutt, it's Mac Jones, which is kind of unbelievable. But so I think at 4, that's where the real intrigue is after San Francisco's intrigue. So maybe the intrigue's at 3 and then 4. Right. Point is, that's where it kind of gets going.
Right.
Now, Danny, I've been a longtime fan of yours, not only just with you, with Grant, Danny, but before that when you were on with Holden. You're a lifelong Washington fan. Can you kind of describe for folks, maybe the younger guys, the difference in this organization? You've had Jason Wright on your show. They've had a lot of interaction with the fan base. They've had a lot of input into what's going on in that building. How refreshing is that for this fan base?
Kyle, this is one of those things where I understand skepticism, and I remain skeptical myself. I need years of this because Jason Wright is excellent. That dude is beyond impressive. But so is Brian LaFemina. So was Scott McLuhan on paper when he was trotted around to do every interview. And now
when he was sober. Right.
Well, listen, we know the story, and I'm not making light of that. Like, it didn't work out, and that's probably the worst place for someone to be, honestly, if they struggle with that.
Yeah.
We've seen the White Knight come in here, be the guy because Dan gets embarrassed or whatever, and he trots somebody out to sell the tickets and to get people believing again and get all ginned up. Right now, at this moment, Jason Wright on the business side, Ron Rivera is an adult. That's a grown-up. That guy's in charge. He brings all his friends named Marty. They hang out. They make football decisions.
That's amazing.
Oh, yes. Sign me right the hell up for that, right? I'm all in on that. So right now it feels good. How long does that last? My data points in the past where I've gone outside and be like, it's sunny out there for true. And then I get punched in the nose, right? Yeah. I don't want to get punched in the nose. I'm just going to open my screen door a peek and make sure there's no bully out there.
Yeah.
I understand folks being skeptical. Again, I remain skeptical. Right now, this minute, do they have good people working there? Yes. Have they had good people working there before that don't work there anymore? Yes. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a bit of a cop-out. If we get another year where Ron Rivera is allowed to be Ron Rivera, where there's no Dan Snyder from the Ivory Tower, in the middle of playing office golf, which never forget, he and Bruce had to kick people out of meeting rooms to play office golf when they were trying to run a football operation. That was a thing, by the way.
That was real.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep, totally real thing. That guy is still in charge after somehow a million lawsuits and a culture of harassment, allegedly. Where's that work report, by the way? Somehow gets more. Somehow owns 100%. We should all be so lucky. He's still looming. He's still there. The worst owner, among the worst owners in sports, one of the worst owners in the NFL is still there. So I need another year, another couple of years even, where guys are allowed to succeed and fail, but imprint their vision of things. And if Rivera's allowed to do that, there absolutely is reason for optimism. So right now, if we're allowed to be there, I feel good about it because these are good people. But the question remains, how long will they be allowed to do their job?
Yes, thank you. And that was basically the question I wanted answered is, obviously we've had these moments where like, okay, it's finally happened, but then, you start getting the hints of the old ways coming back around. And when have we turned that corner? And that goes to your point exactly.
Yeah, and kind of sticking with the good times, if you want to call them that. Have you been a fan? You've seen like the golden age of this team.
Yes.
Do you have like a favorite moment, like as a fan, like to date, and like a favorite player as well?
Art Monk is my number one seed of all time. And my two favorite athletes growing up in this area were Art Monk and Cal Ripken. I learned very quickly the thing that I like in sports is I want to be able to count on you. Yeah. I love dependability. Ups and downs are cool, like guys that do amazingly talented things, guys that will make a great catch, have a big game. Those are awesome. Super talented guys are great. When it's 3rd and 5, you throw it to Art Monk, it's a goddamn first down. Mm-hmm. When you show up at the ballpark to see the Orioles play, Cal Ripken was in the lineup playing shortstop, 4 good at bats, a bunch of good plays in the field because he was there to play every single day. Dependability is the thing that I love the most, and that's lost in sports. Whether it's night, and I know I sound like Dan Dockich here, but like whether it's nights off, whether it's rest days, maintenance, or otherwise, guys not playing with bumps and bruises. I understand that. We know more about health now than we did before, but damn it, if I don't, long for kind of some of those days. In terms of best memory, there's a lot to pick from. I remember the feeling. I've obviously gone back and watched the play a million times, but I was just a little tiny kid. I remember Riggins' run in the Super Bowl in the sense that I remember the yelling. I remember the euphoria. I remember seeing stars because I was jumping up and down and the sound and the smells of my father and my uncle and everybody there watching the game going crazy. But in terms of an individual play, I'd ultimately probably say Super Bowl against the Broncos, where they're down 10-0. And I'm beside myself. I mean, I'm going, and I don't like Elway because he quit and he wouldn't play for Baltimore and he's an ass. Like, I'm just all upset and I had to go to a different room and watch it like on the small black and white television. That touchdown to Ricky Sanders, to get him on the board, to start the ball rolling for the greatest quarter in the history of football, by the way, in everyone's eyepiece. Everyone else can suck it, by the way. Suck it. That second quarter to get them rolling before the deluge and the unbridled joy and the ass whooping that ensued. That play to kind of get it started, I think, is probably one that will stick with me forever. That long pass and Sanders behind the defense scoring a touchdown.
Right.
Man, if we can only get so lucky in this near future.
Well, remember Super Bowls? Are you guys too young for Super Bowls?
Too young for
I was
Super
around
Bowls.
for 87, even though I don't remember it at all.
I will tell you one thing that I saw, and that was that Washington Nationals championship. Real fast, you can answer this one quick. What is going on with Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin?
So for Corbin, I don't know the answer. Last year, we kind of chalked it up with an asterisk here.
Yep.
This was weird for a lot of guys. A lot of guys experienced something to this effect where they got ramped up. These are creatures of habit. Mm-hmm. They ramped him up. The stoppage happened. And then on short notice, these guys had to ramp up again. Some dudes get out of bed throwing 95. That's cool. Some guys needed a little bit more, and Corbin never really felt right. Doolittle didn't feel right. Doolittle's been pretty good in Cincinnati last time I checked. Maybe I'm wrong, but so for Corbin, we kind of said, okay, maybe that's the excuse. Well, now what's our excuse? Now what's our problem? Now maybe this time it was the COVID thing, and he had to take his own plane. He flew commercial, and he had a bad start. Okay, what about this last start? Velocity's down. The bite on the slider isn't there. He's trying to mix in his changeup a little bit more, which is just a show me pitch at this stage. I don't know. He needs an excellent start, and they need it now. So in terms of that, just to piggyback off that, to go to Strasburg, half their payroll is in 3 guys. Yeah. Half their payroll is in the top 3 in this rotation. Since his opening day start, where Max Scherzer gave up 77,000 home runs, numbers approximate, he's given up 1 earned run since then. It's been freaking filthy. Yeah, learning how to pitch with a little bit less velo. He's mixing.
Scherzer always starts slow too. He'll give up a lot of home runs early on.
Yeah, it's because he challenges guys. He tries to pitch and fish. He tries to get ahead of you. Yep. Guys guess, and they get out in front and they catch home runs. And that's always going to be happening. That's the cost of doing business with him. But he's getting ahead, and he's been really, really good. He's putting guys away. He's better, frankly, than I thought he was going to be as his age curve usually kind of catches up. So they need him to continue. Strasburg, disaster last year, made, through 2 more innings than I did, basically, and had arm surgery. Everyone was just kind of counting on him, just kind of coming back and being himself. I wasn't counting on that. That's a big if, right?
Yeah.
That's basically, those two guys between Strasburg and Corbin, disasters last year and disasters so far this year. You look up, second worst record in the National League. And now, by the way, Juan Soto's on the 10-day injury list. I don't know if you guys caught that news right before we started. Mm-hmm. So why don't you just go ahead and take a fork and stab me in the thigh with it? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's just not good at all.
It's not good.
To wrap this up, Danny, there's one question I want to ask you, and it's Grant's buddy, Ryan Kerrigan. There's not a big market for him. It's been touted around that the Washington would probably accept him coming back as a rotational player. Do you think that Ryan Kerrigan would return?
It's a great question. I wonder about that. I hadn't actually thought about it. Here are the two sides. And I know I'm kind of copping out instead of just giving you a yes or no. Okay. The two sides would be this. Enough water was under that bridge being like, I'm moving on. I'm going to be a starter. I'm going to go somewhere else. That maybe it's a pride thing. And Kerrigan's a wonderful dude, by the way. I've gotten to know him a little bit, very lucky to have done so. Just a tremendous guy. But I wonder if there's I'm just going to go another place just kind of because of how this all ended, of how this all kind of went down. The other part is, hey, we got something pretty decent going on here. Right. I could be a pretty good situational pass rusher. You never know what's going to happen. I'll still get my 25, 30 plays a game. I'll be fresh. I'll get downhill on a right tackle. I'll get my 5.5, 6 sacks. I could be well over 100 in a couple of years. I still think he'll want to go somewhere and play every down, but I don't ultimately. So I would guess no, that he wouldn't come back at this stage. But again, never say never, man. The league is crazy.
Absolutely. Danny, I can't thank you enough for joining us. But before, was the Kate Upton Holden thing, was that the most awkward moment in your radio career?
It's up there.
It's up there?
It's up there. Here's the thing, being me, we've got a whole file of awkward, ridiculous flubs on my part. So the Kate Upton one's up there. Years ago, UVA was in the College World Series. All right. Middle of the summer, nothing's going on. So we do a thing on our show called the Beltway Blitz, right? Where we talk about a couple different teams, 2-3 different teams in town that have something going on. And so on my show sheet, I write down whoever it was. May have been like Rob Carlin talking about the Caps, Jesse Doherty talking about baseball. He wasn't on the beat yet, but Chelsea Genius talking about baseball. And then I wrote down, instead of the guy's name, I wrote down UVA baseball. That's not a person's name. So when we go to it, I realize, I look down, that's not the guy's name. And so I panic. I mean, I panic to a level that you shouldn't panic, having done radio for as long as I had at that point. All I should have done is given a little bit of silence, hit the talk back button and go, hey, what's this guy's name? My producer would have told me, would have been fine. I panic and I just go, let's talk who's here? Like Wahoo's here. And Grant goes, like, what are you talking about, right? And I'm like, UVA in the College World Series. What do we make of it? Jay Spores is from McLean. I'm from McLean. Help me out. And the guy's
Dug
like,
yourself in a bigger grave.
Yeah. The guy's like, am I on? Yeah, they're playing well. Glad to be here. His name was Channing Poole. I'll never forget that now, but at the time I couldn't remember, and it was really bad. But it's up there. I mean, I've had a bunch of those. I one time, now you got me started on this. I one time said that we were doing a segment, like kind of again in the off season, where we're going, who's going to be the biggest problem for the at that time, the Redskins? Who's going to be in the division? Who's the guy that's going to be a thorn on their side? And I did this huge build up.
Oh, I remember this one.
You know what I'm talking about, Kyle? And I go, this guy's underrated. This guy has caught passes. This guy always seems to be open. He's got great hands, runs good routes. I think he's going to be a great fit in Andy Reid's system. I think it was still Andy Reid at the time. And Grant's like, oh, who is it? What are you talking about? And I was like, Jeremy Maclin. Jeremy Maclin. Jeremy Maclin, dude. That guy's a – and I went on and on. And Grant was like, I don't think he plays in Philadelphia anymore. Because what I was doing, I was trying to come up with a hipster answer. Right, and I was looking at last year's Pro Football Reference page. I go, instead of just saying, why am I blanking on his name? The wide receiver plays in Cleveland now. Odell Beckham. Instead of just saying Odell Beckham, like everyone else is going to say, I was like, let me do something else. And I was like, okay, well, that's it. You got the rest of the show. I'm going to sit here and go F myself. Like, I can't handle it. Yeah.
It was probably almost as awkward as the first time Kyle called into your guys' show.
Oh, no, dude.
Was it bad?
Dude, it was brutal. So, like, obviously, I've been big fans of you guys for a long time, especially Grant when he was on the beat. So, like, I finally convinced myself to call into your guys' show. And you guys had a second. You were asking because at that time, Tim Tebow had been brought into Philly with Chip Kelly. And your question to the radio calls were, why would Chip Kelly bring Tim Tebow in? So I was like, all right, this is it. My time. I'm going to make sure I'm calling to Grant Danny. I'm ready for it. So I call him like, yeah, he's going to use him as like an H-back kind of thing where he can use like at throwing out of the backfield in case of emergencies. And so Grant goes, okay, Danny, start listing me quarterbacks. And you start listing quarterbacks. He goes, I'd take him over Tebow. I'd take him over Tebow. I'd take him over Tebow. And just absolutely bludgeoned me to death right there. And before I could even say anything, I was like, well, you guys asked why he brought him in. I'm not saying Tim Tebow's good. My God. But that was the first time I called in. Grant destroyed me, and it was a great time.
Oh, so we were dicks?
Oh, dude, and Grant is never a dick, by the way.
That's how that story came out. It's like, and by the way, this whole episode has been a setup to Ron.
To bully shame you.
Yeah, it's just the fact that Grant hated Tebow that much as a quarterback. He was just bludgeoning.
Seems like a very nice guy, by the way, and good for Tim Tebow. But yeah, we didn't think highly of old Timothy Tebow as a QB. I will say that.
Absolutely.
The kicker is at the end of this interview, you have to fight Jake Paul. So
if you listen to our show, people get why that's funny. If they don't, they'll be like, why would Mike say that?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Absolutely great. Thank you so much, Danny, for taking time out. I know you just got the radio. For you to take this time out to be able to join us. We're huge fans. We really appreciate it, sir. I really do.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoyed it, man. Be well.
Have a good one.
Take it easy, dude.
Have a great one, Danny. All right, everybody. We just talked to Danny Rouhier of 106.7.
The man, one of the goats. One of the goats in DC sports radio. Easily.
Absolutely.
A lot of laughs.
Top five men of all time, too.
Danny gets a bad rap because he's like, he's involved with 106.7. So, all the fans like kind of hate on 106.7 sometimes. Yeah.
He also comes with like actual like logical takes that like irrational fans can't handle. It's just like,
it makes their heads explode.
The fact is he's a fan just like us. We talk about all these media personalities. Like Danny is literally just a stand-up comedian that is very good at talking sports. And that's what he is. And he's a fan of Washington football. Absolutely love Danny. Thank you so much for joining us. Now,
I just went dark.
Let's just move on to our fan questions. And the first one they're going to go to is the Douglas Duggs, which is the Douglas Do-Gooder. He says the current and / former Washington football team players retiring this year and their best moments. Meaning yesterday, Alex Smith and Jordan Reed today retired. 2 former Washington football team members retired. So best moments, Hall.
For Jordan Reed, I definitely got to go to Thanksgiving Dallas game where
that's what
him and Kirk Cousins connected. I think Kirk threw like 5 touchdowns that game. I think it was, and
he was
Jordan
playing
Reed
with the separated shoulder or broken collarbone or something like that.
That diving catch down the sidelines.
Yeah, he balled out. What do you have? I think 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns that game. Yeah. I had him in fantasy that day, just super balled out. So that's definitely one that stuck in my head. And as far as Alex Smith. It's funny is I wouldn't even go Washington. I would probably go the 49ers back whenever he had that QB rollout and he ran down the sideline and he won the game against the Saints in the I want to say the divisional game or the first round of the playoffs, something like that. And it was after all the years of Alex Smith getting just straight pooped on by all those coaches and coordinators and everyone saying he's a bust, for Harbaugh to come in and kind of revive his career. That was one of my highlight moments for Alex Smith as well.
Yeah, and for Jordan Reed, it's the one-handed catch he had against the Packers in the playoff game.
That was my other one.
Oh, really? Of course I stole it from you. But that was probably one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. Dude's running full speed, reaches behind him with one hand and grabs it out of the air. But a defender literally thought he had a pick. And then just Jordan Reed snatched it with one hand and then kept running. One of the best catches I've ever seen. Jordan Reed is by far just awesome. And then with Alex Smith, you can't get past the Pittsburgh Monday night win this year. I loved that game. We needed that game as a city to go into Pittsburgh in prime time in the all whites, and we took it to them, and we walked away with a W. I think that kind of game is describes Alex perfectly. He's not going to ball downfield, but he's going to win you the football game. He's going to get the ball to Logan Thomas when he needs to. He's going to make those long passes down the sideline when he needs to, and he's going to get you W's, and that's what he did.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, all of those. So Jordan Reed, I'll just say that entire 2015 season where he really established himself as a top 5 tight end in the NFL. I remember always
900 receiving yards, 11 touchdowns.
Yeah, 952 yards, 87 receptions, 11 touchdowns. Like you said, he just dominated. He was just reliable as hell. He was so good. And I was so happy that he was not the next Aaron Hernandez off the field because he was so always compared to him because he came from Florida, similar size, similar build, similar style game. Just, the guy could play. I was very happy about that. And then Alex Smith, of course, I mean, what else can you go with? His return. I know that it wasn't obviously ideal. I know Aaron Donald rode his back, but just the fact him coming in there and just the entire NFL world filling up tears in their eyes. It was just incredible. It was amazing. And really, that's
a cop out.
It is a cop out, but that's because you guys took everything else. I was going to say him being a bust for the first half of his career, but I didn't want to rain on his parade. Yeah. So I went with the cop out since you two assholes took all of mine.
It still rubs me the wrong way that Keanu Neal never got the penalty for that hit that he had in that preseason game. That was just piss poor. And the NFL was terrible at handling that situation.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say it ended his career, but it definitely contributed a good portion of it.
It did. Yeah. Now, let's move on to the Colonel, who has another great question for us. He asks, is there a first-round scenario that any of you hosts fear? And I'll start with you, Reed.
I'm going to say trading up to number 4. Just giving up all that. You'd have to give up so much just to get to number 4. And look, obviously, if we do that and we end up getting like Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Mac, whatever, and they end up being our franchise quarterback, then obviously I'll be wrong, but like right now, I think that we can fill our roster out so well, and then maybe next year address the quarterback position, or maybe fill it in the middle rounds or whatever. I just think giving up that much is really something that I'm very scared of. I do think Ron Rivera is too smart to do that, though.
Yeah. My scenario is that if Parsons obviously most likely will be gone, but let's say Christian Darrisaw is gone as well from that selection there. With those two guys gone, you're put into a corner on what you're going to do. Are you taking Tevin Jenkins possibly? Are you taking Zaven Collins? Or are you getting Jock? You're kind of in that limbo area there. Unless Christian Darrisaw obviously is there, then shoe in, boom, boom, let's make that pick. When you're kind of in that no man's land, like Danny was saying with Jock, where he kind of fits what Landon Collins could bring, it makes you think twice about that pick now. So are you going to go with Zaven? Is 19 a little bit too high for Zaven? And that's where the one scenario that I do fear is that we're going to be stuck in no man's land. No one's going to want to trade up at that point, and we're stuck and we have to make a selection and we kind of panic. That's the one situation I fear.
It's kind of a two-parter for me. The first one would be if they draft a wide receiver at 19. That would be worst case scenario.
If they draft Rashad Bateman at 19, that's what I freaking fear.
I mean, look, honestly, at this point, because they already went kind of not really heavy in free agency, but they already brought in
Adam Humphries isn't necessarily the third guy.
I know, but I'm just saying,
if a good guy's there,
unless a guy like Jalen Waddle is somehow like
that's 19, the only way I would be okay with it.
100% cool with that. But outside of that, they draft someone at 19, like a receiver like Bateman,
Rondale Moore or something.
I'm gonna be like, all right, whoever's making these decisions, get him out of here. But the second one would be kind of if they think that they can kind of trade back a couple spots and get a guy at, I don't know, 22 or 23 that would be there at 19, and all of a sudden that person gets taken before they get to 22, and then it's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do now? We just traded back to this guy. But again, obviously they always have like first round grades and multiple first round grades on multiple players, so they're probably going to get value at that point, or best value. But again, trading back to get a guy, say Zaven Collins, at 22, 23-ish, but he goes at 20, it's kind of like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Right. Yeah, it is. That's good. And the Colonel's next question is, did the Washington football team screw the pooch by releasing Thad Moss? He said, after all, since he did pick him up very fast, and I'll start with you, Hall.
Well, hindsight's always 20/20. I thought that he would come in and maybe compete for like the second string backup behind Logan Thomas, just because he's kind of that athletic guy and he's a pretty good blocker. But obviously, with them knowing that Samuel Reyes was coming down the pipeline, they were okay with releasing him. So I'm okay with them releasing him.
No, I don't think they screwed the pooch, Colonel, at all, because I think when you're looking at that third tight end spot, which is where I think Sammis Reyes is, by no means do I think he's the backup immediately right away. I do think he's going to have take some time to develop and then progress into being a starting caliber tight end. But for right now, when you're at third tight end spot, it's the same way that I view the third running back on the roster. Somebody that can develop, that can progress, and then gradually get better. When you look at it on paper, Thad Moss doesn't really move the needle for you in that kind of aspect because he's limited athletically. You know, he doesn't create space on his own. He's not very a bendy, shifty kind of guy. Yes, maybe he can block. His niche is that he can block well and he catches well. But besides that, you know, his height doesn't match Logan Thomas's, who can win those battles one-on-one downfield. So, no, I don't think they screwed the pooch. I think they did this the right way. They went with potential. And that's what they view with that third tight end spot, which is the way it should be viewed, as somebody that couldn't develop into a starting tight end. And let's say he does get to reach that potential. Who's going to have the better career based on their measurements and how well they graded out? It's going to be Sammis Reyes rather than Thad Moss, in my personal opinion. So I don't think they screwed the pooch at all, Colonel.
Right. Yeah, I think both of you guys are right. So I'll just go in another direction that I don't understand where that term came from. I just don't get it. Screwed the pooch. Who's out there banging dogs? And why is that necessarily a bad thing?
It's probably a Southern thing, man. They have the best sayings.
Why is that a bad thing? You know, some people free love, dude. I'm pretty sure that's what the 60s was all about.
And then Mr. Deeds at the end of it, the one dude's like, "Who licked the red off your lollipop, son?" Just sayings like that. Southerners just get it. They just do.
They do get it.
Now, our next question is from Freddie Ham of the HTWR podcast. What's up, Freddie? He asked,
Fred,
what are your thoughts on folks saying that Trey Lance is a huge bust risk and or that he isn't a first-round talent, Reed?
Of course there's a bust risk. There's a bust risk with every quarterback, every first rounder. Yeah, really. Trey Lance, I think, is I think he's a little bit better than people get him credit for. A lot of people are breaking it down. They're like, Trey Lance definitely needs a year. I think that he does, but I do think that he could come into the right offense and be okay because, look, they ran a pro-style offense at North Dakota State. Trey Lance is talented as hell. Yes, he's young. He's going to be 20 years old when he's drafted, but he's got everything that you look for. Did run a pro-style offense. Only played one game this past year, obviously because of COVID, but started a total of 17 games in college. There's people, Kyler Murray came in starting less games than that, but he is young. He does need to develop. He hasn't been playing strictly quarterback for that long. So I think people are making a bigger deal about it than they should, but of course bust factor is always there. It's there with everybody, especially somebody from a small school, doesn't have that many starts, and isn't a finished product in terms of his passing. So I mean, I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
No, and I agree with you. I was very high on Trey Lance. Before we did the episode with Daniel Kelly, we watched film on Trey Lance last year, and I absolutely loved what I was seeing. I was like, look, this guy is a top 10 pick. He is legit. He's very good. But then when I saw this year in that tape, he kind of regressed a little bit and made me think twice about Trey Lance. But that being said, the people saying that he's not a first-round talent is ridiculous. He is a first-round talent. This is the way the NFL is geared.
Quarterback in the NFL.
This is what the NFL is geared towards. And so this is what's going to happen. You know, you're going to get pushed to the top, and that's where Trey Lance does belong, in my personal opinion. I do feel like people are just naturally taking this kind of very negative stance against Trey Lance because of how many people are talking about trading up for Trey Lance. Because they're essentially saying, no, that scares the hell out of me based on the risks involved. Every prospect has risks, obviously, but there's some brought with Trey Lance. Do I agree with him that he's not a first-round pick? No. Do I think he's going to be a bust just because of what I've seen? No. Go into a certain situation that dude can really blossom and do well. I'm just in the market of not saying I want to give up future assets in order to go get him. Right. If he falls to you, make that pick. Go right ahead. Let's see what's going on. But I'm in that path. That's what I feel like a lot of people are going towards. It's like they're very hating on Trey Lance because they fear the trade up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, first off, the bus aspect comes because obviously the experience only has that 1 year of starting, and then he had the one game this year, which everyone was kind of like turned away from, even though he still ran for like over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. But
the JMU game,
no, it was against.
Sorry, no.
Central
Arkansas, like Arkansas State or something.
Just avoid me. I don't even know why.
I think it was against the Red Wolves. Funny thing about it, I think it was against the Red Wolves, like Arkansas State or something like that.
Oh no way.
But what's it called? So that's where kind of the bus factor comes in my opinion. Because I heard about Trey Lance through like all the college people, like watching like shows and like just like reading articles. I heard about him in 2019. like before all the hype got out. I was like, might be someone to watch out for. But yeah, it comes from mechanical issues and the lack of inexperience. But again, if you go to the right situation with the right QB coach and the right mentor, they can fix the mechanical issues like snap of a finger.
Right.
And a little bit of a story. I was watching something earlier where this dude was pretty much saying that his true freshman year at North Dakota State, he comes in like after practice, after working out, whatever. He sees that there's a light on in the training room, in the film room. He goes in, and it's Trey Lance. Not only was he got finished breaking down North Dakota film and like going through the offense, like breaking down defenses. At that point in time, as a freshman, 18 years old, he was looking at NFL defenses and breaking them down, figuring out how to beat NFL defenses and stuff like that. So the dude's a hard worker.
Right.
He's gonna put the work in to be great. He definitely has the highest ceiling of all these quarterbacks, including Trevor Lawrence, just because he's more mobile than him.
I won't disagree.
He's got all the tools, man.
All the tools, great size. So, look, I'm like you. If we got to go up to 4 to get him, that's way too much. But if he somehow slides at like 8 to Carolina,
You don't have to give up that much.
I'm making that call if
Yeah.
they think that he's going to be the guy for the next 10 plus years.
Another thing about Trey Lance real fast, that obviously his work ethic is apparently off the charts. He's apparently a fantastic student of the game, loves football. Another thing that he did that I thought was very interesting, his first pro day, he went through and studied the playbooks of every team that needs a quarterback in round 1. I'm talking about Atlanta, the Jets, Washington, all these teams that he's been rumored for, and went and ran passing concepts and routes from all their systems to show, hey, I can make these throws from your playbook. I can do this. And they said that was the first time that that's been done that they know of on NFL Network. And they said NFL GMs were just swooning over that. And they're like, dude, that's smart as shit.
Yeah, I still say it to this day. The day after we drafted Terry McLaurin, I knew he was the best draft pick of that draft class simply because of his reaction into what players and coaches said about him in his time at Ohio State. The interview process, who they are as people, go far more than the tape does and whatever they do on the scouting report. The interview is the most important. Obviously, we don't see it that much. But hearing that, I feel much better about Trey Lance now than I did 10 minutes ago. Just hearing that.
Depends, though. Tim Tebow was a pretty good guy.
Well,
I'm just
yeah,
kidding. I'm joking. You could just watch his film and be like, no, you're not a first rounder. I don't know.
I mean, dude, the dude's wind-up was like 30 minutes long.
I know. Yeah.
All he does is win.
Yeah. Is that him or the team? I
Skip
don't know.
Bayless is about to chime in right now. He's like, you guys talking about my boy?
I hope he does.
That's why I did that, because he's all he does is win.
Yeah.
He just wins games.
God, he's so ugly.
Ski up.
He's so ugly, dude. Skip is so ugly.
Skip,
Now,
come on.
Our next question is from Tony Shivers. It's a similar question, the same question I asked Danny Rouhier. He says he hasn't seen a market for Ryan Kerrigan. Do you think he'll come back, Call?
Yeah, like Danny said, both sides. You can definitely see two sides of it where it might be a pride thing. It might be like, I got X amount left in the tank. I think I can still be a starter. I can still be a contributor on every single down. But I guess the ageism side of the NFL is looking at him like, you got to let it tread on them tires. So you're more of a backup third down rusher. But like Danny said, you can still come in, get your 25 to 30 snaps a game, get 5-6 plus snaps or sacks throughout the season, and still be a contributor on a team that's ascending right now. So
Yep.
I would welcome him back with open arms. But like Danny said, I can definitely see him going to a team like maybe someone gets injured in training camp and he signs right then and there. So
Yeah, and I've said this for many, many times. If you have to choose between going to Cincinnati and possibly starting or coming back here and possibly competing far into the playoffs and making a run, come back home, dude. Let's win it for the hometown. Let's do it like you've been since 2010. Come back and let's make this thing go. This is the best team that you've had since you've been here. Like, legit. And now you're leaving because you want to start. Let's end your career the right way, dude. Let's win one for DC. Let's win one for RK. Let's kind of do something what Chris Long did for the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defensive line was stout. They were stacked. But Chris Long came in for pennies on the dollar because he wanted to win. And that defensive line really fueled that entire team, even after losing their quarterback. Come back home, Ryan. I would love for it to happen, Tony. I really would. And I think the chances are very good. I truly do.
Yeah, I feel like that Rick James gif.
Right,
Dave Chappelle's Rick James. Yeah.
That was
But,
weeks ago.
Yeah, but of course, obviously, I mean, you want Ryan Kerrigan there. I've been saying literally for a long time now that look, our defensive line is amazing, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with the backup pass rushers because Chase Young and Montez Sweat did not play every down last year. They rotated in a lot. We always had a constant rotation. So with those two being top of the line guys and really having nobody behind them, you need somebody to come in there and help spell them at times, And Ryan Kerrigan's perfect in that role right now at this point in his career. So I would love it. Obviously, Does it happen? I don't know. But we all can pray. I think we need a little bit more prayer in this world. So
Yes,
Where's Tebow when you need him?
yeah,
Exactly. Where's Tebow?
Come to daddy, Tim.
Now, our next question is from Orange Crush. He says, after Bryce Love got waived, how likely is it that we pick up a new running back in the draft? If so, who? And I'll start with you, Reed.
Ooh, that's a very interesting question with who. There's a few guys I think
So
like
yes,
Danny
you
was
do
saying,
think they'll go in the draft and get a running
I
back?
do. I do think eventually, yes, they will go running back in the draft. And like you said, 3 to 5 rounds, 3 to 5, I think are those really, really interesting rounds. Who will they take? I am not 100% sure. I know who was it? Ramondre Moore from Oklahoma. I think is somebody who's interesting just in terms of his size and his ability. I want somebody who. But I want somebody who can kind of be versatile, kind of like how Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick is. And I know we need that Thunder guy. I know we do. But I just think that it can create such a headache for some of these teams. So I don't know who they go. There's some very interesting people, but I do not think that they're going to take one day 2. I don't think that they're going to end up taking one on day 1, like that one mock draft. But I think round 3 to 5, I'd have to go back and look at my prospect rankings. I'm too lazy to pull them up right now. But, I'll have to take a good look there.
Yeah, I've said this many, many times, Orange Crush. I know that they re-signed Lamar Miller from last year, and they have Peyton Barber there as a third running back. But I've always said I want that third running back to be somebody that could possibly be a starter, that developmental guy that could come in and utilize those snaps instead of just being the power back. I want you to be able to spring that a little bit. I want to be able to progress that running back room because besides Antonio Gibson, it's kind of old. And no disrespect to J.D. McKissick, Peyton Barber. I'm not saying you're old. I'm probably the same age y'all are, but you know what I'm saying? And so in the draft, I'm looking at, Demetric
Ramondre
Felton.
Stevenson's his name, by the way.
Yeah, Stevens. I didn't want to correct you.
I correct you guys all the time. Just
Demetric Felton, he's a guy that, like Reed said, kind of wide receiver, running back, kind of hybrid guy. But like Trey Sermon, Khalil Herbert, but the one name I have circled is Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis, Antonio Gibson's guy. He is a legit runner. He runs through tackles. He can light off the top of the defense, and he can get those hard-nosed running lanes and get those the hard yardage that you need, and he makes it look easy. I think Kenneth Gainwell is the name to circle.
Yeah, I was going to say Kenneth Gainwell as well, just because, like you said, he backed up Antonio, or he didn't really back him up, but he knows Antonio Gibson.
He pushed Antonio Gibson to wide receiver.
Exactly. He pushed him to wide receiver, so he would be a great kind of relief and I guess a good duo with Gibson as well. But another guy is Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. He's pretty Chuba. He's a downhill runner. He can hit the home runs. He doesn't have that breakaway speed, but once he starts going downhill, he can kind of outrun you a little bit. And he can definitely be that third down short yardage guy that could possibly develop into a long-term solution for another team, or maybe like I said, a thunder or lightning kind of thing with Antonio Gibson.
Real fast, I'm going to throw a name out there that's very interesting, especially because Carolina, they obviously like the Christian McCaffrey, these types of running backs. Jake Funk from Maryland went to Damascus High School. He is a running back who could be. Went to my alma mater.
He had like a 42-inch vertical or something like that.
Yeah. He's athletic as hell.
Yeah. He was actually just on Good Morning Football.
Yeah. I just had to pull up the top running backs in the draft because I couldn't find my list on this. And
he's actually
MJD has him ranked at number 14, I think. But it's in front of some pretty impressive guys.
I've already slotted him to the Patriots in the 5th round.
It makes too much sense.
I know. He's the next Rex Burkhead.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's how I view him. But now our next question is from Juan. He wants to know, how would you feel about drafting Trayvon Moehrig, the safety from TCU, at 19 and getting Nick Bolton or Jamin Davis in the 2nd round, Hall?
I mean, if Jamin Davis makes it to the 2nd round, you sprint like Usain Bolt style, like Danny said, to the podium. But I don't think he's making it to the 2nd round. Mm-hmm. As far as going safety at 19, it's a little too rich for my blood. But I mean, hey, if they see a playmaking and a game-changing safety, which I mean, I feel like you can. They're not really Jags, but like you can get them in like later depth rounds. It's more like I said, 19. You're gonna go offensive lineman, linebacker, a real position of need. So again, that might fall under like my worst case scenario. like picks, honestly.
I wouldn't like it, just like Hall. To be honest, I do think there are some capable safeties in this draft that kind of fits what Washington does defensively. Obviously, their job is going to be made a lot easier. Do you need a bona fide superstar there? No. So I don't want to use that first-round pick on there. Obviously, Trayvon Moehrig is the best free safety in this class. But there's guys like Caden Stearns in the later rounds, or Richie Grant in the second or third round that you can go get. But there's a guy who ran poorly. I've said it many times. He's falling in the draft boards. He's now like a seventh-round prospect. Paris Ford. He ran like a
He didn't just run poorly.
He ran a 5-second 40, right? It was something
4.9, 4.9.
But basically, his play speed's a lot faster than that. And
Yeah.
so that's somebody you can use one of those later round picks on. So you don't need to mortgage your first rounder on that safety position, in my opinion. Obviously, it's just mine, but that's what I'm saying. And then with Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis or Nick Bolton, I would love getting either one of those guys in a second. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. I would much rather kind of, go with one of these guys instead, because they kind of have the same mindset in a way. Like, they're both the Mike linebackers that come up and hit you a little bit. But I would pick Jamin Davis over that.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you guys.
Basically.
I don't hate Trayvon Moehrig. I actually like Trayvon Moehrig, and maybe he's somebody who we could acquire if we traded back in the first round. But I think 19 is just a little too rich. We have bigger needs. There should be other people there that could fill those needs. But yeah, I don't think Jamin Davis makes it to round 2. I think he's way too good. But he's somebody. Him and Nick Bolton, like you said, Kyle, they're similar. Except for Jamin Davis can really use his athleticism on the outside as well. He's more of a chess piece where you can move him around a little bit more just because he's athletic, but he has more of that thumper, that kind of like that's where he's natural, but with his athleticism, you can move him. But yeah, I like both Nick Bolton and Jamin Davis. I mean, if we don't take a linebacker round 1, even if we do take a linebacker round 1, if Davis is there in round 2, I would double up on it. Obviously, honestly, I think he's that good. I've done that 51.
I've done that in multiple mocks of doubling up linebackers in this draft.
Yeah,
all the time.
I just think he's too good. He's not going to be there. Honestly, I think that there is an outside chance that Washington could take him at 19.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. That's been speculated and talked about. I could 100% see that happening.
Yeah. Trade back scenario right there.
Now, Mark Baxter wants to know, speaking of trading back, would you trade up in the second round for Javonte Williams, the running back from North Carolina? He says his tape is nuts. I'll start with you, Hall.
Okay.
Look, I love Javonte Williams. Big fan of his. Watched a couple UNC games throughout the year because I was trying to watch Sam Howell as well, and he's the one that popped off the screen as well as Howell. But again, second round, Javonte Williams, running back, a little too rich for my blood, only because my man Gibby is there, and I think that Gibby has potential to be, like Logan Paulson said, top 5 in this league as far as running backs go. So why get in the way of a top 5 potential running back by drafting a guy that's good? Let's go. Look, Javonte Williams could be a top 5 running back in the league in the future. Who knows? But I just have faith in Gibby right now, and I'd like a side piece to Gibby as opposed to like a actual like pairing type of running back.
Side piece, yeah. What a great use of words there. I absolutely love Javonte Williams. You're 100% right, Mark. His tape is ridiculous. It really is. Seeing him block as a lead blocker for his running back Michael Carter and absolutely destroying that linebacker, I mean, making him concussed, was absolutely insane. He is a hard hitter. He runs through a bunch of tackles. He can get away from DBs. He can get away from other defenders and hit the hard hole and then get deep. It's amazing to see this guy. He really is a total package. That being said, I'm not going to trade up in the second for him. If he falls, without a doubt, you pull that trigger and you bring him into the group, and your running back core is solidified. You're really, because we talked about before with Colonel, with an injury to AG, what are you going to do? You're kind of in a bad spot. And adding Javonte Williams would kind of spell that in a way. But I would not trade up, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, you guys both hit the nail on the head, so I'm just going to throw an interesting tidbit. Hall, you brought up Sam Howell. I've been watching a lot of Sam Howell lately and digging up a good amount on him. But you want to hear some very interesting fact about Sam Howell? When Sam Howell was recruited from Mac Brown, originally he had committed, I believe, to Florida State. Mac Brown comes to Sam Howell's house, and Sam Howell literally told him to leave his house. He told Mac Brown to leave his house because he said, "You don't have an offensive coordinator that's going to tailor the game to me. I mean, bye, you're gone." And then it changed because they got somebody else. So he went out there and he was like, "Okay, I'll come to you. That's cool." I just thought it was funny as shit that senior in high school told Mac Brown to get out of his house.
I know, Mac Brown.
Of all coaches too,
winning
Mac
Brown. Yeah. And Mac Brown's the nicest guy ever. He's probably like, okay.
Yeah, sure. All right, so
Hey,
I'll talk to you
he's
soon.
kinda-
See you
He
soon.
kind of did what he asked. He was like, "Hey,
I know. He's like, you
you're
said
not gonna
offensive
get-
coordinator? Okay, come on.
That's awesome. Now, Scott Hartley says, with Bryce Love getting waived, it got him thinking. Kyle Smith was heralded as like a draft genius hitting in late rounds. Do we have to think about busts too? And what he means by that with draft prospects, when you're looking at the draft prospect board, do you have to look at them as a possible bust factor for each one of these prospects, Reed?
Yeah. Oh, 100. Yeah. You have to. I think the big thing. I think that a lot of times, most football players in the draft, especially early on, are very talented. No matter what, it just they gotta fit your system, and you have to be able to adapt your system to them if they have special skill sets, whatever. So that's where a lot of players, I think, end up falling off. Is people fall in love with the player and they don't either make their system or they don't. They just don't fit. I mean, or they don't have the right locker room around the guys. I think players can be successful almost anywhere, as long as they're in the right place. So yeah, to an extent. I mean, obviously, there's people out there like, Darius Hayward-Bay. I feel like was just somebody who was such a physical freak, but he didn't necessarily have it down. Bruce Campbell is another person we talked about. And that's why I threw him out there. But there's a few guys like that. Vernon Golston. Yeah, Vernon Golston. Right, he was a dude from Ohio State, the pass rusher. He was the other guy who was just like. He should have been the guy, but he wasn't. So, yeah, I mean, you can worry about being a bust, but I just think you have to pick the right players for your system.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, Scott, there's busts in every draft, but like I said earlier, with like the whole interview process of being able to really find out if guys are worth it or not, that's where you also find out if they're most likely going to be busts. And like I loved hearing Arakpo like comparing himself to Chase Young and stuff. It's like, dude,
Brian Arakpo talk like this.
Right. You gotta warn me next time. That was
Hey man, I'm Brian Arakpo.
But yes,
my cupcake shop. Me and Michael Griffin are making cupcakes.
Yes. Yes, we need to be looking at busts too, but the interview process, Scott, is the best way to be able to diagnose that. Paul's probably not in the right mindset to answer that question. Now, our next question is from Tony Franchise. This is a long one. If we were able to trade up to, let's say, 13 for Trey Lance without having to give up a haul, like swapping first-round picks and one of the third-round picks.
Please don't give me up, please.
While taking linebackers Jabril Cox and Nick Bolton with the second and third-round picks, is that a possibility while also signing Russell Okung to play left tackle? Is there any possibility that can happen, Reed?
That was a lot.
That we keep 19 and still trade up to 13?
No, what he's saying is basically we trade up to 13, we swap the first without having to give up one of the thirds, is what he's saying.
I mean, if I have the trade chart thing right here.
No, it's okay.
I don't think it's necessarily. Yeah, I mean, to get up to 13 from 19, yeah, you could, but you'd have to give up a first-round pick next year for sure, or first. I don't remember. I'd have to look at the chart, but you can definitely not get rid of one of your thirds. Yeah, but you can, but you got to give up a high-round pick next year for sure.
Yeah, and I wholeheartedly agree. I just don't think that Nick Bolton will be available in that second-round pick at 51. I think he will be gone. I have seen him fall in mocks to that point. I just don't think that he's going to make it there, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there's a bunch of –
and I don't think Jabril Cox makes it to round 3.
No, honestly, I don't think Jabril Cox is all that good, dude. I really don't.
Really?
That's just
I love Jabril Cox.
He is
I did a breakdown on him.
Dude, I love Cox. Cox is like
he has way too many missed tackles. Way too many.
Yeah, but I'll have him on the field just to look good.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you to Danny Rouhier for stopping by. Thank you to Tony Franchise, Mark Baxter, Juan, Orange Crush, Scott Hartley, Freddie Ham, the Colonel, and Tony Shivers. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you for asking your questions. We will be back again on Thursday. Make sure you guys do not miss it, all right? I'm Kyle.
I'm all.
And this is my official challenge as a 38-year-old retired wrestler to Jake Paul. I'm coming for you, brother. Meet me in the boxing ring. Let's split that $1 million bag, $500,000 a piece, so you can knock me out in one round, and I'll take it like a champ because that'll change my life.
I would totally pay money to see you fight Jake Paul.
He would kick my ass.
Oh, without a doubt he would, but it would be
I would
a
get
great
the money
time.
for it. Yeah, I don't care.
It would look so funny.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We'll see you on Thursday. Washington football. Hey! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.